In this video, we're going to cover our top 5 strategies and secrets that the most successful students do every single time when it comes to not just passing, but dominating their NASM exam. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Coach Joe Drake, and I am the CEO and the Director of Education at the Axiom Fitness Academy. And I've been fortunate to be teaching personal training courses for over a decade now, and we have had hundreds and hundreds of students come through our NASM specific personal training courses. And what we've done is we've condensed some of the best approaches and strategies that we've seen since 2015 running these NASM courses and condensed it down into just our top 5 secrets or the top 5 strategies that the most successful students do every single time. So this video specifically is going to be set up to help you approach your studies as you now embark on this journey, which is probably something that's a little bit foreign for most of you guys. And I say foreign because maybe you haven't been in school in a while, exercise science might be new to you for all these different reasons, but we want to give you guys the best things to focus on as you're getting started, the how behind you go into your studies. If you want more information and real specific detail on what to focus on inside of each chapter, we actually have another video that you can find the link for in our description below that walks you through every single chapter of the study guide that I'm going to give you guys access to later on in this video. But for right now, I want to jump into these 5 strategies that you got to be focused on if you guys want to do well and pass the NASM exam the first time through. So here it is, our top secrets for dominating, not just passing, but dominating your NASM exam and actually remembering the information, which for so many people is a struggle of just memorizing things and then forgetting it afterwards. But don't worry, these are going to help you get there either way. And you guys can see, we've got a special student here on the screen right now. This is my girl, Nicole. And the reason that I put her specifically on here for you guys is because Nicole is someone who went through our program about a year or 2 years ago. And Nicole was a full-time teacher. She was working at a kickboxing studio. She was involved in the community. She was so busy as she started out on this process to becoming a personal trainer. And chances are, I would imagine, it's probably similar for yourself. Most of the students that we've worked with, people we interact with here on YouTube, are busy in life. You're working full-time, part-time, you're a parent, whatever it is. And it's tough to figure out, okay, as I have time every week, how do I go about actually studying? Right? How do I go about actually studying? And that's kind of a weird question, like how do I actually just approach the process? But for so many people, it's maybe been a little while. So as we jump into this, I just want to make sure that this video is for you because I made this video very specifically for a certain person. Most of the people that we get to work with our in-person and virtual courses kind of fit this bill. So I want you to be able to answer these couple of questions real quick. First off, if you've gotten inside the materials, right, you probably already have access. Most of you guys watching this are already enrolled in an NASM, program of some kind. And chances are you got into the material and you're like, oh crap, this is a lot, right? It's kind of overwhelming. Maybe it's not the most exciting to be learning online if you've never taken online classes. So we get this from a lot of our students. It's very overwhelming as you just kind of dive into the material. So if you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed, I promise you're not alone. That's okay. You're probably more in the majority than anything. Also, a lot of students haven't taken a test in years, right? So I would imagine as you guys are watching this, obviously, some people straight out of high school and college get into certified personal training. That's what I did way back in the day. But chances are most of you guys probably haven't taken an exam in a while, right? So there's the stress that comes along with that. And then literally just the fact that like you might not know how to study anymore, which I totally understand and I get. It's a skill as much as it is anything. And we're going to jump into what that looks like. And then on top of that, maybe you're not a great test taker. So if you feel like you might fit any of these 3 or all 3 of them, you're overwhelmed with the materials right now. So you're out here on YouTube looking for more great resources. Maybe you haven't taken a test in years. And on top of that, you're not a great test taker. I promise you, you have what it takes. Stay the course. And truthfully, if these fit you, then these next 5 secrets or these next 5 strategies I'm going to go through are extremely important just to set you out on the right path of how to approach the material, right? There's so much inside the NASM curriculum, the 300 pages of the textbook. No doubt you're not going to memorize it all, not that that's what you really need to do. And so if you can stay focused from a bigger picture perspective, right? Big picture perspective on these 5 things, you're going to be in a much better place when it comes to making progress on a weekly basis. All right, so first one, this is one that not a lot of people end up using, and that is understanding how to use the blueprint. So what you guys see here on the screen, this is standardized across the 7th edition of the NASM exam. You got to remember, NASM truly wants you to pass. They want you to be certified. It's good for them, it's good for you. And so they're giving you exactly how much of everyone's exam. You're going to have 120 questions on your exam, and these exact percentages of these different content areas are going to be the same for everyone. Everybody watching this video is going to have a different exam with different questions, but the number of questions that come from these content areas is going to be the exact same. That's how these accredited certifications work. And the thing that you can use, and most people just don't do this, or maybe they don't know about it, is using this as a lens and somewhat of like a filter when it comes to your studies. All right, so no doubt everything inside the material, could be considered important and maybe could be on the exam, all right? But as we look at chapters 1 and 2, which are a little bit more like introduction to the industry, very, very broad concepts kind of condensed down into those 2 chapters. You can see section 1, which is these 2 chapters, it's only going to be 10% of your exam. Right? So out of the 120 questions that you get asked on your exam, that means 12 of them are going to come from this area. Chances are a lot of this material is going to be a little bit simpler for you. And so as you're looking at how much time you spend in different content areas, this is a great thing to come back to. All right. And I'll give you guys a great example of what I mean by this. So for example, chapters 5 through 10. All right, the basic and applied sciences. This is where a lot of people, a lot of students, a lot of our students just get hung up on the material. Because as you get into those chapters, right, chapter 5, kind of getting into the human movement system, and then chapter 7, which is, again, now we're looking at like all these terms that you're going to be exposed to: neuromuscular efficiency, synergistic dominance, reciprocal inhibition. There's a lot happening. This is the basis of the science, right? And this is important stuff, especially if you want to go on and be a great coach and trainer down the road. But the reality is you have time. And as we look at it from an exam standpoint, although, right, if you get into the NASM materials in this section, there is like some extended material on things like digestion. As we look at nutrition and supplementation, these are all really interesting and important things in some respect, but as a new entry-level personal trainer, knowing a lot about the digestive system is probably not on the top of your priority list, nor should it be. I'm not saying it's not valuable information, but I think as a new coach and trainer, not that important. Also, from an exam standpoint, there's only going to be 15% of your questions from this entire section. That means chapters 5 through 10, right? There's quite a few chapters there. So when it comes to specific things like getting caught up on, like the endocrine system or the digestive system, don't worry. Don't spend more time there. If you find yourself getting tripped up, spending too much time studying, struggling with some of those things on quizzes, I would just take a step away from it and move on. And also to make sure you are spending time on the stuff that's most important. So if you look at it, chapters or sections 5 and 6, this is 44% of your exam. Almost half of your exam comes from these last 2 sections. And that is because it makes sense. As a personal trainer, you're going to be spending a lot of time on exercise selection, progressions, and programming. So this is really what those sections are all about. So if I were you, I would use this as a frame of reference and say, okay, once I make my way through the materials, as I'm spending time studying, I'm going to spend even more time. I'm going to repeat the quizzes from chapters 23 or from chapters 13 to 23 because they're a big component of the exam. Take this little sheet here, print it out, slap it up, put it inside your notebook, and make sure that every week you refer back to make sure you're spending the right amount of time on the right things. And secret number 2, this one is really interesting because this is probably where most of you guys found success in your health and fitness, meaning that chances are most of you, if you want to become a personal trainer, either A, you found fitness in some time of your life, maybe you had a transformation of some kind, or maybe you were an athlete and it became part of your identity. There's so many ways that people come into fitness and want to become coaches and trainers, but I have no doubt that if you have made great progress, right, you've either lost a lot of body fat or you've gained muscle or you've gotten stronger or faster over a period of time, you probably had a pretty strong plan in place to get there. So you know how to do it. And the problem is most people just don't approach studying for the NASM exam with that mindset. But you need to from the very beginning, because just like weight loss and training, if you set up realistic expectations, right, then you're going to be more motivated along the way, and you're going to know it's part of the plan. If you have an unrealistic expectation of how long this process is going to take you and how much time you're going to have to study, then it's going to be pretty demotivating. And you might end up being one of the massive percentages of people who never even go take the exam because they get overwhelmed in the process. So just like a client, you got to create and you got to work a plan. You need to ask yourself, how much time is it realistic for me to study on a daily basis or on a weekly basis, right? If you look at a given week with work and life and your other responsibilities, how much time can you really carve out for focused? And I say focus studying because a lot of people multitask, right? You've got your phone out while you're kind of like watching a video and you're also checking text messages. That's not going to get you very far. I'm talking focus studied with no distractions. So all of a sudden our time drops down, right? Where you don't have kids and family and other things. So based on how much time you have to study every week, I can tell you probably how long it's going to take you. And I know that because, again, I've taught certifications across multiple organizations, and we've had, 420 plus students go through our programs. And what I have found, as you can see on the image here, if you want to give yourself some realistic time scales, unless you're coming in with like an exercise science background, which most of you probably aren't, that if you want to finish your CPT or this program in less than 6 weeks or around 6 weeks, you're probably going to need to treat this like a full-time or a part-time job. All right, truthfully, at least like a part-time job. You can see here, I find that if you have at least 10 to 12, around 12 hours of really focused study time every week, and you're doing that consistently on a weekly basis, you can probably get through all of this in around 6 weeks, maybe 6 to 8 weeks based on the person. All right, so that's a lot of time though. You may not have that much time every week to study based on what you have going on. So for you, if maybe you only have, let's call it 6 to 8 hours a week to really be focused on what you're doing, then it's probably going to take you around 10 weeks, right? Somewhere between 2 and 3 months. And then for those of you who may only have, let's call it like 4 to 5 hours a week, right? Maybe you only have that to sneak in order to actually study and like really be focused on the material. Chances are it's probably going to take you somewhere between 3 and 4 months. I find probably around 16 weeks for most people. And if you want to go pro with this, right? You really want to go next level, set your test date, right? Like actually schedule it. Because chances are if you've got that end date in mind, you're going to force yourself and make sure that you get ready versus putting it off. This one just really has to do with how you approach learning anything, right? If you really want to be great at learning, which is a skill, right? It comes easier for some than others, but it can be practiced and focused on and honed in on. Then you want to make sure that you're understanding first and foremost, what is your primary learning pathway? Now I know because we've created in-person courses and live virtual courses with students from around the world, most people getting into training learn by seeing and doing. I mean, no doubt if someone shows you an exercise, you're probably able to replicate it relatively well. That's what a lot of coaches and trainers get into because you learn that way and you enjoy it. But reality of it is you're watching this video because you may not have access to those things. So you've got to start to create some of this for yourself and just understand these 3 important learning pathways. First one, visual. All right, and this can happen in a couple different ways. Like you're watching this video right now. It probably means some mixture of watching, reading, and writing, right? Where there's this visual component. Now, obviously, as you're watching a video, you get some auditory going in there as well, but you're able to see and consume in that way. And especially when it comes to things like exercise technique and training, like that's going to be helpful because you can see what it's supposed to look like. But as far as retention goes, reading and writing as well. All right, so I know it's a losing strategy for most people just to read the NASM textbook and do nothing else because you just don't retain all that information. And so then it's being able to utilize things like quizzes and spend time writing out the most important concepts. Whatever it is, I know for me, I got to write things out if I really want to learn it. And so you got to know yourself and you got to find ways to build that into your study approach and build it into your plan. The other piece is auditory. Listen, if you guys haven't already, for example, come across the NASM podcast, right? Our guy, Rick Ritchie, who's just an awesome dude and does a really great job at explaining some of these concepts, then that's a great tool to use while you guys are at the gym, working out, you're on the Stairmaster, whatever it is, helping you retain and solidify and hear things explained in a different way by someone who may not be inside of just the textbook or the things you're using, right? So you got to do that as well. I think the auditory and the listening. And then the real magic here, which is the tough part, is kinesthetic, like actually doing some of these things. So when it comes to the OPT model and stabilization, which is a new style of training for most people, and if you're not there yet, you'll get there and understand what I mean. training with a 4-2-1 tempo, right? 4 seconds down, 2-second isometric at the bottom, and then 1 second concentric. That's not how most people train in the gym. So if you really want to do better at learning and solidifying the information and then be able to use it in training, you got to be getting out every week and trying to say, how can I apply the stuff that I'm learning? Like, what can I go do in the gym that's going to force me to think about this? Right? As I'm doing exercises in the gym, what plane of motion am I moving in? What's the primary joint action that's happening in my elbow or my shoulder? If you can force yourself to do this, I promise you it's going to click so much more as you guys get close to the exam. And then the pro tip on here, right, is we all know if you can teach something to somebody, it's the best way to learn it. That's honestly the number one reason why I know this stuff so well now, is because I've been teaching it for 10 years. So there might be you finding ways to teach others in your life. Grab your spouse, grab a friend, go through the overhead squat, do it with them, right? Not just for practice, but also explain it to them, right? It's going to be maybe a little awkward for some of you guys, but it is 100% the best way, not only to become a great coach, but also just to make sure you're actually learning the information and you're going to retain it. Next up, secret number 4. This should probably come as no surprise as you guys have made your way into some of the material, and it is own the OPT model, the Optimum Performance Training Model. This is NASM's bread and butter, right? This is their differentiator amongst a lot of other organizations. So you should have no doubt that this is going to be baked into not just the material, right? But also a lot of the exam questions, and not just recognition questions, because although you will get some questions that are like, hey, you know, what are the primary goals inside of stabilization training, right? And you're going to have A, B, C, D options. So there's one way you're going to do it. But the other piece is going to be using application of the OPT model to answer questions, especially as we look at the exam. We mentioned 44% of your exam comes from chapters 13 through 23. And that is a lot of understanding not just the NASM and the OPT model, but application with progressions. So a lot of it is really built in there as you get into the chapters that talk about balance training, you know, flexibility training, core training, plyometric, all these other things. The NASM model is baked into those little progressions as well. You'll find level 1, level 2, level 3 progressions. And so you really, really want to know the OPT model. I think the great thing here is, even if you don't use this model to the T, right, perfectly with your training beyond your certification, it still does a great job of focusing you on building a foundation for clients, slowing things down, and paying attention to movement mechanics. So for me, I think it's a win-win, because it's also going to end up making you a better coach if you really have a strong grasp of a lot of the information surrounding the OPT model. The last secret that I have for you guys, and probably one of the most important for actually going into the exam, doing well, and feeling confident, is you've got to start quizzing from day one. So no matter where you're at in the process right now, even if you just signed up for the exam and now you're doing some additional research, you need to start quizzing. A lot of people end up waiting till like the second half of their studies. You know, they wait till they're like through, like, let me just get through everything first. No, don't do it. That's not the best way to approach the material. Literally from the beginning, as you start going through chapters, you know, consume a chapter, whether that's reading, whether that's watching videos, however you might be consuming it, and then go right to the quizzes, all right? That's going to be the best way to point out what you don't know. And the thing is as you continue to study through the materials, oftentimes we like spending time studying the stuff that we already know, but it's not going to be that effective at helping you guys do well and pass the exam. You want to use the quizzes, you want to use the chapter quizzes, the section quizzes, and the practice exams that are all inside your NASM material as probably one of your, you know, primary study tools. Take the quizzes early, take them often, take them again, because not only are they going to help you identify what you don't know, but it's all about building test confidence. Right? Like I said, I'm going to bet you probably haven't taken an exam in a number of years. And even if you have, it's probably not the most exciting thing for you. So if you can go in there confident, knowing how NASM is going to ask questions, which is going to be tricky, and you know, doing those things, it's going to be so much more helpful. You're going to be so much more well prepared when you go sit for the exam and pass the first time, rather than having to, you know, wait, you know, sit 7 days and take it again. So on top of that, just so you guys know, if I were you, if you're consistently getting 85 to 90% on those practice quizzes, the section quizzes, and the practice exams, then chances are you're ready to take the exam. Stop putting it off, go take the exam, dominate so you can move on to the next step. And created for you guys is just a free resource, right? This is stuff that some of you guys, maybe you've already paid for additional study packages, or you've bought study guides from other organizations. And that's great, right? The more resources you have, the better. But we just wanted to create a free resource for individuals like you. We just had gotten so many great conversations and feedback with some of the stuff we have here on YouTube, as well as our students here in person. We just wanted to create a great resource for them to keep them focused as they're going through the material. So this is something you guys can have free access to. All you guys need to do, check out the link in the description of this video, and you guys can download. And inside of there, not only are the main bullet points, we talked a little bit in this video for the most part about just how to approach your studying from a big picture perspective. This now gets into specifically, what do I really need to know? What are the most important things? How can I boil down the most important concepts inside of each chapter throughout the entire 7th edition? So I know this is a great value because I put a ton of time into building this resource out for you guys. And not only the primary things you need to know, but there's also 400 plus flashcards that are built into this study guide, as well as links to dozens and dozens and dozens of additional videos on these specific concepts, just to help make your study process easier as you're going through chapter to chapter. So enjoy this resource, put it to use. I know it's going to help you guys do well on the exam. And if you have any questions about how to use it, don't hesitate to reach back out. And beyond the study guide, we've got some additional resources for you guys to take advantage of as well. And you might be wondering, like, why are they giving away all this free stuff? Like, what's the sale at the end? And there is no sale. We really don't have anything to sell you with this video. We're fortunate to have great courses going on here in South Florida as well as virtually. So for those of you guys who have questions about those things, you definitely can reach out and we can talk more about that. But we created the Axiom Academy just because I know as a trainer for the last 16 years, getting started, getting certified, we need more great coaches and trainers in the industry, and I truly believe that if more people had a little bit more support and help in the beginning, then they would be much better off as they get started. So I'm hoping that some of these resources can serve you in that way. All right, so in addition to the study guide, which you guys can download from the description, you guys can also find a link to access our free Facebook study group, right? We created a free Facebook study group for people to come in, ask questions, interact, and there's tons of great stuff going on inside of there on a regular basis. And then on top of that, for those who, want to continue to get great videos like this, subscribe to our YouTube. Hopefully, if you've gained some value from this, don't hesitate to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and we're going to continue to make great resources, not only for you guys to pass your NASM exam, because that's like step 1, and then step 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 beyond that are all the other things you're going to need to figure out and learn inside the fitness industry. So we have a lot of great content on those pieces, how to get started, how to sell training, all the other stuff that comes with doing well inside the industry. And if you want to go deeper, or you just want to chop it up with me on the phone, get on a coaching call, you guys can also find a link to access. We do a free 15 to 20 minute kind of strategy session coaching call for individuals who are where you are right now. All right, whether that is helping you kind of come up with your own approach towards studying, whether you have real specific questions about the content, or maybe even you're about to go take your exam and you're already thinking about, gosh, what do I do next? Where do I get a job? How do I approach those things? Love to jump on and talk to you guys about any of it. But I appreciate you guys hanging with me. If you're still with me here at the end of this video, then I know you're serious about what you're up to and what you're doing. Take advantage of these free resources for you guys, and don't hesitate to reach out if myself or the Axiom Academy can do anything for you in the process of becoming a trainer and making a difference.